Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of My Hornby Hobby. So, here's a little bit of a behind the scenes video for you. I thought I'd show you how I do my stories, my tales from the track. So, it all starts from Mya. It starts with the script. Well, actually, it starts with an idea, and then that turns into the script. So, I'm sure you've all seen the video by now, Dawdling Diesel. So I got the idea, I've got the title. So I then think, right, how's the story going to go? And I thought, if this was an episode of the TV series, how would it go? The narrator would introduce the character. So Diesel is a Class 08 shunter. He's not as fast as the other engines, but he is strong. So a little bit of a background on the character there. And then a little bit of maybe a little bit of dialogue between two characters. And then you jump into the nitty gritty, the story. So one morning, Tornado was pulling the express. Up ahead, Diesel was pulling the slow goods. And then, there's a bit of conflict, an argument. Because that tends to happen in the TV show. Where there's an argument and then karma hits and then they have to be rescued. And then there's an I'm sorry moment at the very end, which is how I've structured this. So we are probably about, halfway through at the moment, at time of recording. So what's just happened is Tornado is in the sheds with Kelly and they've just had an argument, or rather Kelly's defending Diesel. Tornado saying if he were a proper engine, he'd be really useful, and all that. So that's been filmed. So then we move on to the next scene, which will be Tornado arriving at the station. So what I would then do is I would cut over to here. Now, the coaches are going to be moved probably onto this side in, and Diesel will be doing some shunting. Tornado's going to be coming in and complaining, why aren't my coaches ready? And then we progress from that. And that's basically what happens. And I just go through the entire script line by line, and it may take several takes to get absolutely right. I mean, one of these scenes took about 3 takes to get right. So we just work our way through the script, and I use this pink highlighter to say, I've filmed this scene, I've done it, so now we can move on to the next day. Tornado arrived at the station to find his coaches weren't ready. So that's the next scene. And I try and use my natural voice for the narrator, or something that sounds a bit like Michelangelis. And then, obviously, Tornado's got a really pompous voice, whereas Diesel's got the CGI Diesel. So we work our way through the entire script, highlighting as we go. And then once we get to the end, and I stop filming, I then go into my phone's gallery, and I go through each scene to make sure I'm happy with them. So from start to finish, I make sure that I don't flub up the lines. I make sure there's no derailments. I make sure it's all smooth and transitional. I make sure it's all good. Okay? And then after that, I then create it into a movie. As long as everything's fine, I then create it into a movie in accordance with the script. Okay? I try and do it in order. All the filming, I try and do in order. That way it's easier and not do it out of order. And then I put all those shots together into a movie. I watch it back several times, make sure everything's good. And then once it's good, I can then upload it to YouTube. And it sounds easier than it actually is. I mean, when you're in here, when you've got the camera on the tripod, okay, so let's just say I'm about to do Kelly's line of Kelly felt sorry for Diesel. Would I be really useful if I were a steam engine? Then I have to cut and then move the camera over to Tornado, press record, and then obviously do his line, and then pause, and then move the camera back. Okay? But as I said, it can take a bit of time to get each shot just right. Sorry. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 times, maybe even more. The important thing is don't get stressed about it. And when it comes to doing angles or shots on the layout, I try and use everything to my advantage. So sometimes I will be using the camera in here to get a shot like that, but it's so then I can reach the controller. Because if you're out here, you know, the camera's here, I'm trying to reach my arm under, and I can only just about reach the controller. So I've got to press record on the camera, reach over, get the controller moving, get the train going, and then start speaking. So I'm doing about 3 things at once. So it's not as easy as you think. And I'm all on my own here. I would love it if I had a cameraman, and then I could focus on doing the scripting and the controlling. It'd be so much easier. But yeah, a couple of tricks that I've also used is with one scene with Diesel, where he's getting told to hurry up along this straight, I actually take the motor out so that then he's freewheeling and the Hawthorne Leslie can push him without any issues. So I have to work within the space that I've got, and it can be quite tricky. But once you've figured it out, it can be smooth sailing. So now we're about to move on to the next day at the station. Tornado's still arguing, you know, still giving Diesel grief. You know, why aren't my coaches ready? They should be ready. And, you know, Diesel is still feeling bitter about being called slow. And then it just goes from there. And that's basically how we do it. So there's a behind the scenes look of how I film my Tales from the Track. So I hope this has been insightful for you. I'm sure you already guessed how I did it. But for those of you who didn't, that's how. And maybe this will inspire you to do basically the same thing. If you've got trains and you want to do your own little railway series style stories, then just get yourself a notepad and a pen and maybe a highlighter. That's optional, but it does help. And then just get writing. It's that simple. Well, I make it sound simple, but it actually isn't. But that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, stay safe and thanks for watching.